Hello and welcome to the second captaincy video of the 2021 season from Fantasy Football Scout. It's game week 2 already. My name is Joe and joining me is David. David, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. It was, I guess, same old story for a lot of us in game week 1 with the captaincy, and I was one of those that captained Aubameyang, but also owned Salah, didn't captain him, watched him get 20 points. Funnily enough, he was my vice captain. My vice captain last season got a hat trick on the opening day as well because that was Sterling.
Yeah.
And when I did captain Salah, so it's a familiar story. But I don't mind too much. I mean, in hindsight, I guess I considered Salah, but not. But I mean, it's my own fault. I wasn't brave enough to go with it. I really enjoyed the Captain Sensible article that we had on site last week, which I can say that with slightly less vanity this year because I didn't write it for a change. We had Jan Sienkiewicz on, who second most captain points in the whole world last season, and he made an excellent point about how he felt that Salah might get a little bit more space behind a Leeds defence that was more likely to sort of play out from the back than a Fulham one. And even though not all of Salah's goals came from that sort of, that particular element of the game, there was a lot. After the game, I was like, he did say that before the game. I did consider Salah, but in the end, I was a bit of a wuss. I went with Aubameyang just because of the ownership. I still got the points. It's not, it's not perfect, but we go again. I mean, that sort of thing is going to help me, I guess, try and go away from the ownership a little bit more this week. Although I know, of course, Joe, that you're still quite happy that you captain Aubameyang and you don't really care that about the Salah points.
No, well, I mean, I'm exactly like you. Same thing happened to me last season. Happened to me again. I own both, so pleased that two of my players did well. Do I wish, with hindsight, that I captained the guy who got a hat trick rather than one goal? Yeah, of course. But no, I'd do it again. Aubameyang, for me, it wasn't the ownership. I was actually really surprised. He was the most captain, most vice captained. It just seemed like the whole world had captained him, and I was quite surprised by that. I thought that may have gone to Salah, but I was quite happy with his goal, and I would have liked more, obviously. But from open play, Aubameyang looked good. He looked sharp. I like the fact he's a midfielder. I like the fact he's got. Well, we're going to talk in a sec. I like the fact he's got West Ham coming up next. And yeah, at the end of the day, you and I, as owners of both, by captaining Aubameyang, we are 13 points down.
So if you think actually that bad, is it?
If you think we are 13 points down across the season, well, I might think, I'm 13 points away from something, some kind of threshold. But it's not really the end of the world. If I didn't own Salah, and then maybe that would be a different story. But still, it's only one game week. I was just grateful to
own him. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's still only one game week. Anyway, let's move on. Enough of game week 1. Game week 2 is what it's all about. We're going to start with Aubameyang again. We have to, really. Look, he's having a really good smile. And no wonder, because he did score. He did look good. Fulham were bad. And he's got West Ham next. So, he delivered a goal last week away to Fulham. This week's at home against another poor-looking defence in game week 1, West Ham. What do we think of Aubameyang's chances? You going to captain him again?
Well, I think I will. I haven't decided yet. I'm normally a decide late in the week kind of guy. I should probably change that attitude. I should probably make a decision like you, beginning of the week, and just stick to it all the way through. But he's not a bad captaincy, obviously. I think for me, this is probably more to do with the fixture than the player necessarily. Which is not to say that he's a bad player or not in form or whatever. But for me, I think this is very much about the fixture because yes, West Ham did look a bit dodgy at the back against Newcastle, and I think the key word in that sentence that is telling is the Newcastle word. It's quite rare to see a team get. I don't want to say played off the park, but Newcastle were in full control of that game. And I can't remember the last time I really saw Newcastle be in control of a game be on the front foot.
I can't remember the last time I saw Andy Carroll be on the front foot and be in control of a game.
Yeah, but also Callum Wilson as well. I mean, we haven't seen Callum Wilson play like that in quite some time. And I say that with a smile on my face because I was a Callum Wilson owner. I don't even know why. In years gone by, I can't stand him because he usually trolls me. But finally, maybe he might actually be reliable. But the whole point is that if West Ham are going to kind of look that ordinary and be that played off the park, or sorry, I said I wouldn't use that phrase. That controlled by Newcastle. Then you've got to expect that Arsenal can do even more damage because If we think Newcastle look new and improved under Steve Bruce, well, Arsenal look seriously new and improved under Arteta. They look more and more assured in every area of the pitch. Every game week, their defense is looking nice. They're able to play out from the back without too many errors these days, and that was even before David Luiz didn't play this game. He was even looking good as well. So Arsenal are going to control this game, and they've got some creativity in the forward areas they didn't have before. In Willian, who just came out of absolutely nowhere, having played no preseason games, just stormed straight in, 3 assists. So I mean, we can talk about Aubameyang. Yeah, I think he'll do well. I mean, if you've gone and signed Willian, I mean, I wouldn't be too shocked if people were going to captain him and he did well. But his presence in the team is fantastic and really helpful for that Arsenal team, because it's just another avenue to help put Aubameyang in a decent position to get some points. And I know that some people were a little bit nervous, especially in the first half, and I was one of those people that, because Aubameyang is playing as a midfielder, and not only is he a midfielder in FPL, you can see on the actual television, by the way, that he is actually a left midfielder, because for large portions of the Fulham game he was tracking back and he got booked because he made like a forwards tackle because he can't tackle because he's a striker. That was in the first half. In the second half, as Fulham kind of retreated into themselves a bit because they weren't really having much joy going forward, he was able to get a little bit more, a little bit more time and space in key areas. And against West Ham, I think he'll have that opportunity as well. I think whenever you're watching these games, you are just going to have to take those moments when he's tracking back like a left back with a pinch of salt, because he's so quick that he can get back into the left forward position very quickly. So I wouldn't be. So I know that people were panicking a bit about that. I wouldn't be too worried at all about that. Certainly a good captaincy against a team like West Ham, who there's something not quite right there.
No, I try and keep it simple with the captaincy decisions. On paper, Aubameyang looked to be the best this week, although, as we'll find out, there are some other key contenders. But he's got the form, he's just scored. He's got the fixtures on penalties. He's at home, scored last week. It's against West Ham. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I think he's the best captaincy for my team. Everyone else might not agree, but I think he's a great captain shout this week. And I'm going to put some stats up on the screen here. And this is... Okay, it's hard to tell who's going to be the whipping boys at the moment after one game. But if there are any contenders to be whipping boys, it is the promoted sides. West Brom, their expected goals conceded were 2.83, so nearly 3. Leeds, not just shy of that, 2.76, so just under 3. Obviously, they were against Liverpool, and they had a very, very young and inexperienced backline there without Ben White. And then Fulham there, next up, nearly 2 for expected goals conceded. What does all that mean? Well, West Brom and Leeds both conceded 2 penalties. So take away, bearing in mind the XG conceded stats there, because I haven't filtered it down by penalty and non-penalty, that actually shows their defence from open play isn't as bad as it may appear. Obviously, there are those errors that lead to penalties there, which is something to look at. Fulham, however, looking at them, 1.97, and just behind them, there we go, it's West Ham. And this is what I'm looking at, so I'm saying who is playing one of these sides. I don't fancy captaining someone playing West Brom or Leeds or Fulham. Next up, West Ham. So there we go.
And it's all from open play against a Newcastle team. That's so ominous. Yeah. That's their easiest fixture for the next 7. They're playing loads of big clubs soon, so we could be looking at project target West Ham defence.
So on paper, it looks like West Brom's, in terms of expected goals conceded, is twice as bad as West Ham's. Filter out the fact 2 of those are penalties, and in fact West Ham's is twice as bad as West Brom's. So that says to me, captaining Aubameyang. He's not going to be in my team after game week 2. So a nice farewell. I did the same against Norwich with him, captured him, and then got rid of him. So I'm hopeful lightning can strike again. But yeah, those stats are quite interesting so far. I've got a table in the members area in Fantasy Football Scout called team defences, but I might just change it to whipping boys or make a new whipping boys one, and people can look at that and look at those stats. That should be all in the members area there, because something to keep an eye on. Hey, hang on, Manchester United are back. So they had a blank game week 1, but they've got a home game coming back against Palace. Martial, Fernandez, all looking like good options. But wasn't captaining Aubameyang. I think I'll captain one of these guys. What do you think? I don't know if you own any Manchester United players, but good options for the captaincy?
Yeah, I think it's really tricky to say on this one. I think, like many fantasy managers, I was looking at this game week 2 fixture as one that was a reason why. For example, in one of my early drafts, and for most of the summer, I had Greenwood in my team to bench for game week 1 and then bring in for this. But seeing the way that Palace played against Southampton is kind of making me think twice. Because we all know what Southampton can offer. They were one of the form teams of Project Restart. It's not been that long since then. And mostly the same team. Obviously, Stuart Armstrong was injured for that game, so they were missing a bit of penetration on one side of the attack. But yeah, I was really impressed with how Palace defended, especially when you consider that this was mostly the same team that was getting pasted every week towards the end of last season, because they weren't so much on the beach. They were more like at the doctors, because they had so many injured players. And Roy Hodgson was coming out after every game and saying, like, I mean, I don't really know what else to offer. Like, we're safe. Most of my players are injured. And basically, you could just translate all of his post-match quotes to be like, we don't really care, right? So then that was why this game, I was thinking, well, it looks pretty good. But now I'm thinking less so, because Hodgson's got the same group of players, admittedly just in one game, looking pretty organised. I mean, Kouyaté is a defensive midfield player, and he's having to fill in at centre-back. But I thought he was man of the match against Southampton. So... yeah, I think this is not going to be as easy a game for Man United as perhaps we thought it was before, which doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means it's not as much of a kind of sort of like shoe-in for double-figure hauls for everybody as it was before. So that's very much at the back of my mind. I don't own any Man United players now. I am a religious... I always stick to no transfers for game week 2. So it will probably stay that way. I want to have my 2 free transfers for game week 3, so I can do a bit of... moving around with the Aubameyang money. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to be overlooking this game. It'll probably come back to bite me. But so that's the Palace side of it covered. The Man United side, I guess there's one or two question marks, not like massive ones. So Rashford obviously had a bit of a niggle over the last few weeks, so not too sure where he's at. There was sort of rumours that Fernandez might have to quarantine. I think they may have passed now.
Oh no, they have passed.
They have passed.
He's back.
Okay.
He was back. Yes, it was. I believe his wife was giving birth. He went back to Portugal, and there was some fears around the timing of him coming back. But apparently, he's been pictured in training this week, so he's back.
So I mean, so obviously that's positive news as well. Greenwood, the question mark, of course, is still there, because, I mean, it's probably too late for them to sign Sancho by the Palace game, but the talks around that seem to be kind of accelerating a little bit. So maybe he's not a great option longer term. And, of course, without wanting to go into too much detail, I don't really know if there'll be any disciplinary implications based on what happened with England, because obviously Gareth Southgate did something about it. We don't know if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will. My suspicion is not, but who knows? We'll have to see. So... yeah, not too sure on that front. I suppose if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Fernandez, just because he's like Mr. Reliable, isn't he? He's obviously more likely to play than Rashford. Not to say that Rashford's like a major doubt or anything, but he's also the penalty taker. He's how many double figure hauls he got? Like in 12 games, it was something like 109 points. So I guess that he could be the way to go. He obviously last time he played Palace, he hit the post, having I think assisted or something, so like he could have had a double figure haul the last time he played Palace, but as I said, that was a different Palace to the one we got now. So yeah, it's tricky. Like, I guess I sort of, on paper, yeah, fine, great, like they're not bad options, but I don't know, there's just something about Palace that seems to have a bit of steel and determination about them, which probably shouldn't be too much of a surprise, because Roy Hodgson is the type of manager that always has his team playing at the moment that they need to be playing. So they didn't need anything from Project Restart. They were safe, they were fine, they had nothing to go for in Europe. Now it's the start of a new season. He's eyeing at 40 points already and doing a good job of it. So yeah, I'm a little bit uneasy about Palace for this.
Yeah, I mean he's the Dumbledore of the Premier League, isn't he? He's just this ancient old wizard casting his spell, and somehow he keeps doing it each time. It's quite something, really. Yeah, I've already got Martial. I had him on my bench game week 1, and I might get Fernandez in, so I might have both of them. Who knows? Who knows? But and I am considering currently vice captaincy is on Martial, and it may move to Fernandez because the power of penalty takers. So a lot of people say, but Fernandez, he's just whatever.
Everyone's been banging on about with Salah.
I can't remember what Az was saying in the Scoutcast about him being an expensive Milivojevic. But then Salah, Vardy, 2 goals, 2 penalties. In Salah's case, he got 3 goals, but you get. Are they expensive Milivojevic's? I mean, I'm just using an excuse to pronounce his name again. The point is, you can't have it both ways. Fernandez, bracket him up into all of those guys. They take penalties for really attacking sides. When they play defences that are inexperienced or poor, they will give away penalties because the likes of Greenwood, because the likes of Martial, Rashford, because of the likes of Mane, Salah, they're bearing down on them. So these are the guys who are going to get a lot of penalties. And I've got some more stats here. So maybe make it too stat heavy, but gone on the screen is something I've started doing for this season. Is current game week shots. So it's just a variety of metrics like shots inside the box, shots on target, expected goals, expected goal involvement, but also non-penalty expected stats as well. And the reason I'm doing that, I'm just tracking it for each game week really to see who was good for the previous game week there. And absolutely top is Salah and Vardy. Expected goal involvement and of Salah and Vardy far outstrip anyone else. But then when you take away the penalty side of it, Salah's is 0.38. So he was expected to score a third of a goal. Vardy's was nothing. 0. He was absolutely, in FPL terms, useless apart from the penalties. But that's not to say they were lucky. And that's not to say, they're just expensive Milivojevic's. These guys, they play for attacking sides. So if they do absolutely nothing, like Vardy doing in FPL terms, 0 on for his expected goals from open play, but he comes away with a double-digit haul, that's all we care about. And that's what I think what Fernandez is all about, really. The ability to win penalties in a team, to score penalties in a team that wins a lot of penalties. And that's why I'm tempted to get Fernandez's. And I think if I see anyone captaining Fernandez, I think, good on you. I think that's a wise choice. But as we've said, I think West Ham's defence may be worse. So that's the thing.
I think I'd echo that, yeah.
But yeah, Martial as well. He's the number 9 for Manchester United at home. First game of the season. I don't think that's a bad shout as well. Hey, Liverpool. That Salah chap is being spoken about. He's getting hard to ignore with these. I think this is the first hat trick for a couple of years though. But yeah, is he captainable against Chelsea? Now, this is a tricky one, isn't it? Come off the back of a hat trick. He's going to be popular for the captaincy, but he's against Chelsea away. What do we think?
I think that we're going to look back on game week 2 and I think we're going to be like, we should have captained Salah again. I really think that's going to happen. And I'm probably still going to not do it because, as you say, on paper, it's Chelsea away. So you think, whatever. That would be a 4 or 5 on the fixture difficulty ranking. But really, it's not. I still haven't seen enough from this Chelsea defence to suggest that it's any better because Kepa, I don't know. I try to be as positive as I can on these because I don't like, I don't want to sort of be picking people out. But I read somewhere last night that he's conceded, in his last 13 shots on target faced, he's conceded 9 goals. So he's only made 4 saves from the last 13 shots on target that he's faced. So Salah, who loves to shoot, is facing a goalkeeper who loves to just stand there and do nothing. So, that kind of seems like a match made in heaven, right? I guess the question comes down to what type of game are we expecting? Are both of these two teams going to basically say to each other, look, it's early days. Both of us probably looking at top 3, top 4, definitely. So let's just chill. Let's have a really cagey affair that Sky Sports build up to be the best game of the weekend. Then it finishes 1-1. That could happen, right? But if both of these teams go for it, there's going to be a lot of space to exploit behind both defenses, and we could. If they go for it, we could see a very similar game to the Leeds game because I think both teams have defensive problems.
Yeah.
And I think both teams have had defensive problems for a long time, which is why I haven't doubled up on Liverpool defence in a while. That's probably for a different video. But either way, that type of game, end to end, is good for Salah. I guess coming into the equation, perhaps maybe is Thiago Silva, who I think might be fit for this, but I guess we just have to see. So that could make a difference because obviously, experienced guy. Um, he can't legislate for a bad goalkeeper, but he might reduce the margin a little bit, I suppose, if he's reducing and blocking, effectively doing Kepa's job for him potentially, without the use of his hands, of course. Um, so there's that, but I don't know. I've just got this sneaky feeling that this is going to be another game that he does well in, just because it could be the type of game that he sort of thrives on, which is a game where there's space to exploit behind the defence.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's two school of thoughts here, really. Let's bring Chelsea into the equation because Werner is heavily owned and ridiculously owned. He's like nearly half the FPL managers have him. Yeah. How are they so savvy? How do they know? How do they know to get this top striker in? But anyway, that's a worry in itself. But there's two school of thoughts here. He could be a good captain because Liverpool's high line of defence could be, badly exposed by someone with his guile and pace. He did have an ice pack on his knee, but it looks like that was more of a knock and he should be okay. Or Salah will exploit, as you've said, the error prone Kepa. That could be. So yes, they are good if they haul and someone captain them, they can point to some of the evidence that we've just been talking about and say that was a good move. Werner on paper was a good captain. Salah was a good captain. He's on penalties against a guy who perhaps can't even. I didn't even. Kepa from open play is pretty bad. So maybe he'll just stand there again and not do anything. Underlying stats from Game Week 1 indicate the Liverpool defence actually may not be as bad as they look, if that makes sense. They conceded 3 goals, but their expected goals conceded was 0.3. Their big chances conceded was 0. They're in fact the second best defence of the game week in terms of expected goals conceded. So that's something to think about there. Perhaps Werner might not get so much joy there, but we want to examine those trends with those defences to find out. But I wouldn't be upset if I saw someone captaining Salah or Werner. But for me personally, and with the evidence we've been talking about, I think Aubameyang, possibly Fernandes, but Aubameyang still has the edge for me.
I think you want to. I think it's one of those things where, I mean, this is my thought process. I think about what am I going to regret about this decision, right? And I guess with Aubameyang, I would have fewer regrets because let's say I went with Salah and he blanked in a game that was really cagey. I'll say to myself, do you know what? I even saw that coming. I've just said it a few minutes ago that that's a game that we could expect, right? So then I'd be kicking myself. I'd be like, why did you go with that? If that caveat of we could have a cagey game, because it's a top 6 clash, it's a top 4 clash, really. So why did you go for it? But there's less of that there with Aubameyang. It's West Ham who got controlled out of the game by Newcastle away from home against Arsenal, who are usually 9 times out of 10 2 or 3-0 win against a team that's outside the top 6. The history is very much there with that fixture. So if Aubameyang blanks in that, I say to myself, I would have done that again. I can't. There was very few reasons to not do it. So if you're trying to weigh up all of these different things about sort of like risk versus reward, I also like to throw regret in there as well. That's the third R for me. And I would probably have slightly more regrets if I went with Salah and he blanked than if I went with Aubameyang and he blanked.
Yeah, I would. No, I'd prefer Aubameyang. It's just the way it is. I'm going to probably sell Salah this week, which is
big moves.
Because I just think Fernandes is the best over the next few game weeks, and I personally don't think Salah is the best captaincy on paper until game week 7 when he's at home to West Ham. I don't like Salah away. I certainly don't like Salah away with Mane on the pitch. I like it when Mane's not on the pitch with Salah. And I like Salah at home in those matches like Leeds as well. So, he was my vice-captain game week 1 and he will most likely be my captain or vice-captain in game week 7. But until then, I think there may be better options. This is going to be famous last words and people on Twitter will cut that bit out and use it on my gravestone for the rest of the series season. There's another team apart from United in Manchester that are back. City, of course. Manchester City, they play Wolves. Wolves look on it. Manchester City, we can assume, are on it, but we don't know because we haven't seen them yet. So what do we think of Man City? I guess, last season's captaincy hero, KDB. What do we think of captaining a City player?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do that this week. I'm probably not even going to own one either. I think most people, if they've had a Manchester asset on the bench for game week 1, it hasn't been a City one because none of them are priced in a way that really allows that. No. So I think that this week City players are still going to be not that well owned, and the reason why that we're not all clamouring for them is because it's Wolves, who we know can upset Man City. They've done it before. They've got a track record of making life very difficult for the top 6. They were less sort of top 6 centric in their wins last season than they were in their first season in the Premier League, but we know that's in their locker. But all of that aside, their defence is really, really good. Since Bolly came back from injury, game week 25 last season, they are, in my opinion, the best defence in the whole Premier League. Better than Man City, better than Man United, better than Liverpool.
Yeah.
Between game week 25 and game week 38, they had the most clean sheets, or joint most clean sheets. And then now they've kept this one against Sheffield United. And it's a little bit sort of like of a jammy stat because Man City and Man United didn't play. But it just means that since game week 25, including game week 1, more clean sheets than anyone else in the league. But that's been combined with the fact that they're also best for fewest shots in a box conceded, they're best for fewest big chances conceded, and best for XGC, expected goals conceded in that time. So they are delivering on their expected stats. They're not over or underperforming. They're controlling games. They're limiting the amount of opportunities their opponents get. And when they do get opportunities, they're making sure it's basically not a big chance or necessarily inside the box. So it's going to be a hard game for Man City. I think they probably still win. I'm not trying to say that Wolves are definitely going to keep a clean sheet against Man City, but it's more just the fact that because we know that Wolves have that there, and they've done that against all number of different teams over quite a long period, it means that I can't see it being anything other than an exceptionally tight game. Which, if we're talking about caveats and regret, if I captain KDB for this game just purely on the basis that he was the top scoring player last year, that's a bit of a blunt decision to make. It's just you're not really considering all the nuances. My regret from that would be, why would I captain a player who's facing the Premier League's current best defence? So for me, it's just a complete no. I'm not going to captain a Man City player for this week, so I'm not going to buy a Man City player this week. If not buying anyone gives me 2 free transfers to get a Man City player on the next game week when they have obviously a much more favourable fixture against Leicester. So yeah, it's a no from me.
Yeah, no, it's a no for me. As you said about the Wolves, I can't argue with that. The Wolves' defence is so good at the moment. I just wanted to point out though, because some of these ownership stats can be a bit weird at the beginning of the season, and as I said, I was quite surprised that Aubameyang rather than Salah was the top captaincy choice, and looking at the ownership as well, but looking at transfers in and out this week so far, and I don't usually mention these in the captaincy video, but I think they could be quite interesting to find out who people will be captaining. Interestingly, De Bruyne is already owned by nearly a third of all managers. 1 in 3 managers own KDB, and that's on the back of over 200,000 transfers in this game week. So he's already going to start being massively owned, and people were going to start considering, because they remember he was such a reliable captain last week. So they might not look at the fixture and say Wolves, they might just look at it and say KDB captain, end of. Interestingly as well, Fernandes also 200,000 transfers in. He is owned by a fifth of managers, so that's going up as well. So Fernandes will be another captaincy shout. Don't forget how popular Manchester United are globally amongst FPL managers. And then looking at the transfers out, that is interesting. Aubameyang, who we have been talking about, has been transferred out by 100,000 managers. They've seen enough. I look at these figures here: 1, 1, 3, 8, 9, 6. I thought it was like 11,000. It was 100,000. I've looked at Aubameyang against West Ham and thought, nah, I'm not interested. I don't know what's going on there, but I just wanted to mention that because I think this week it would not surprise me that KDB and Fernandes will be amongst possibly the most captained and Aubameyang won't be. Aubameyang could be the differential, weirdly. Let's see. Long way to go before the end of this game week. Let's go for the best of the rest. I'm not going to call this barrel scraping time because we're not sure what barrel we're looking at.
We don't know where the bottom of the barrel is yet.
We don't know where the bottom of the barrel is yet. And this is one team I'm really interested in, one matchup I'm really interested in, which is Leeds against Fulham. And as we've said, it looks like their teams, they have conceded penalties. Leeds' case, they conceded penalties. It looks like in Fulham's case, they could be the open play whipping boys. Leeds could just still be a bit more inexperienced. Their very good manager may be struggling a little bit. I'd say struggling. I don't mean in his terms, just to make sure that those errors aren't there. They are not conceding penalties, but it is against Fulham, and that does intrigue me. It does intrigue me, and I think if you're a Leeds fan, and there are quite a few, I'd be tempted just out of love for your team. But I think this is if you don't want to captain Aubameyang, this could be the only time you're going to captain a Leeds player this season. That's just something to put out there. That's something also psychological rather than stats related. But looking at some of these other fixtures here, is anything else spring to mind? Jamie Vardy against Burnley, perhaps.
I seem to remember him. I think he scored a penalty against him last year. Clearly the penalty king so far. What I was going to actually say is I was going to mention Callum Wilson. Not because I'm going to do it myself. I still sort of hate myself that I own him. I'm sort of having very much an identity crisis. Yeah, I know. I sort of every day I wake up and I'm like, I can't believe I own Callum Wilson. But he scored this week. So, our new relationship is, we're off to a good start. But from what I saw of him, I was really impressed. He was sort of, it was something we haven't seen from Wilson in a long time. Maybe 18 months ago was probably the last time that we were really sort of like considering him as a great fantasy asset. What we saw against West Ham was a lot of running in the right places. So the stats don't always show these things up as well as you'd like them to, because if he's found a good position but his colleague just hasn't quite found him, or just kind of missed out on the pass, then that's not going to show up in a shot of any kind.
No.
But from an eye test, I thought he was in the right places, right time. 3 shots in the box is what he had. He was very close with a couple of them, hit the side netting early on. Brighton's defence, I think, is going to offer a little bit more than West Ham's, but of course Ben White went off with an injury. Adam Lallana went off with an injury, so already potentially Potter's going to have to go into that game without necessarily everybody that he wants. But I just got a bit of a sneaky feeling. I think Wilson can have a good game week. I'm not going to captain him, but if you're one of these people that wants to go and captain someone of that ilk, someone no one else is really considering, who you've got a bit of a sneaky feeling about, I've got a sneaky feeling about him too. So I think he's going to do well.
Yeah, and the only other group of players I'll mention is Everton at home to West Brom. I think this looks a standout fixture. West Brom, as XG conceded, as we've spoken about, is very high. Obviously, some of that is the penalties taken into account. But I think the likes of Richarlison, who did post some very good underlying stats in Game Week 1, Calvert-Lewin, obviously with that marvellous headers of his, and blast from the past, James Rodriguez, could be good. Rodriguez, I don't know which way Rodriguez is going to go at the moment. I know he's going to be a great player in real terms, and he's going to look good, and he's often going to be the best player on the pitch to look at. But I don't know whether he's going to be
in the box very much, was he?
No,
he looked very good in midfield, but isn't necessarily in the dangerous places just
Lots of amazing precision crossfield passes to the guy who then assists the scorer or assists the assister. Will he be a Modric? Great, but assisting the assister. Or will he actually be like a Willian? Will he be better than Willian? Could that be possible? But I'm talking in FPL terms here, and I think that's a situation. I'm not gonna jump headfirst into James Rodriguez in my team just yet, but he's a player I am monitoring, and I don't mind the odd price rise or two for him because he could potentially be very much worth it. But yeah, I think I like them. Looking at the other fixtures as well, there's nothing really else springs out to me. And certainly not Southampton Spurs. Both teams very disappointing. If either of them, it probably wouldn't be a Spurs player. I still think there's value in Ings, and I think Ings is a differential captaincy, but Spurs not for me at the moment. But
I
yeah,
think I agree with that. Yeah.
yeah. I think the barrel that we don't know the shape of yet has been scraped. We we've gone alley deep almost. Well, not even that far. But for now, David, thanks so much for joining me. Just before we go, just wanted to mention the members' benefits there. We've been talking about a lot of stats here. There's all sorts of other things going on there. There's the Rate My Team tool. All these stats are all Opta powered as well. Lots of expected goal stuff as well. We've just touched the surface of some of those stats there. There's expected goals, non-penalty, expected goals, this, that, the other. You can see all sorts of expected stats there as well. And also we've got loads of Pro Pundits content as well. And I've been very much enjoying that. This series. It's worth noting that Simon March, one of our Pro Pundits and FPL winner, is on the Scoutcast this week. So do tune in for that. But for now, David, good luck with your captaincy decision.